Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 5 Minute Library. I'm Piyushi Sharma, and I have with me Anirban Bhattacharya, author of 4 books till date. And I personally have already started building a collection. So I have The Deadly Dozen, I have Mumblings and Music, and I have The Sinister Summer Holiday, which we'll be talking about today. Hi, AB, and welcome back to the 5 Minute Library.
Yay, I'm back. So happy to be back, Yushi. Thank you for having me. It's good to be back.
It's incredible to have you back. And for anyone who hasn't seen our previous episodes, I want you to know that AB went from being a true crime writer to a poet, now has written a children's novel, and has again just launched his next true crime novel. So this is an incredible amount of diversity and range here. So
Yeah.
we're going to be talking about all of that. And speaking of that, of course, my first question for you, which everybody has, is you went from being a writer, you wrote about a true crime writer, okay, from like serial killers and all kinds of really, really horrendous things that people did. And being the producer of Crime Patrol and Savdhaan India and these kind of shows, to writing a children's novel, which is like the Indian version of the Famous Five, from my perspective. So, how does that happen? Why did that happen?
Okay. So the the first book I ever wrote in my life
Hmm.
was The Sinister Summer Holiday.
Ah,
I was in class 6, right? And it was the first book I ever wrote because I grew up in Kalimpong in a boarding school. And Enid Blyton, I was devouring 2 Enid Blytons a week, at least. So completely influenced by the work of Enid Blyton and the Famous Five and Secret Seven and all of that. I decided in class 6 that I want to be an author. So I got myself an exercise book, and then I started writing on it. Right. So, and this is the original manuscript from my class 6. Okay, so this is the original manuscript. It was called The Kidnappers. As you can see, it says number 1 because I was hoping it will become a series. And so these are the chapters, and the chapter names are more or less the same. And if you can see, this is chapter 1, and it begins exactly the same way that it does in the book, with the sound of the train arriving and all of that, right? So this is my handwritten class 6 manuscript. So I discovered the manuscript again. I thought I'd lost it, and then during the pandemic, so I was a children's writer first, and then in life I discovered darker stuff. During the pandemic, I was depressed and I wanted something to write, and then I rediscovered this manuscript, and I showed it to my lit agent, which is Book Bakers and Suhail Mathur, and he said, "You must do this because there is nobody who's done this kind of a feel." There are a few authors who attempted it. Some of them are good, but he found a very unique voice in this. And so during the pandemic, I sat down and rewrote the manuscript. So that's how the children's book happened. It was destined to happen since 1985.
it definitely seems like it, because even with the way you have written it, your writing style is so unique. It actually
Thank you.
does show that you have been quite influenced by Enid Blyton, because I grew up reading those books, and my
We all
first
did.
novel. I think all of our first novels were by Enid Blyton.
If one really thinks about it,
Yeah.
all of these Enid Blyton books were actually
Hmm.
crime books.
They were. They
They were
absolutely
actually
were.
solving crime cases. So we've all been devouring crime cases since we were kids. Before the book got published, the idea which I had was I didn't want the typical celebrity quotes and recommendations on the book, which every book has, right? So what I did was, I wanted the actual reader to give me a review. Yay! Yay! So yeah, so I got kids from across the world to read the manuscript and send me their reviews. I said, if it's bad, you tell me it's bad. You tell me it's good. And none of them said it's bad. So one, that was a sense of relief, and two, they really give detailed reviews.
I love that. And since it's your first time writing and publishing a children's novel, while you had all of these different apprehensions and you had to make all these decisions, how did you navigate the industry for children's book, and what is the industry like?
I think there is a huge scope for children's books. There are only very few publishers who are doing children's books. Om is one of them for sure. I think even if you talk about books to Indian readers, as soon as you say, "Hey, what's a good thriller you've read?" they'll immediately Ludlum or Haley or Clive, whatever Patterson or whatever his name is, who I don't read, but they'll never say a Vish Dhamija. We are always so influenced by Western writers. We sort of we get the short end of it, short end of the stick. If I say kids book, how many readers can actually name Indian kids writers apart from Ruskin Bond or a Sudha Murthy? They are not the only ones who are writing kids books, but there are a huge number of people. There's Manjari Prabhu who does a lot of kids books. There is a market for children's books, right? Indian children need to know culture-specific stories as well. I think Vish Dhamija is probably one of the coolest, one of the best thriller writers the world has seen. But you ask an Indian, it's more likely that he or she will talk about a Western writer. Though Vish I know is a very popular writer. So there is space for kids' books. I was lucky to have book bakers and Suhail, because they were the ones who actually did the running around for the book. If I remember correctly, we submitted the book, and within, I think, 3 hours, the publisher was on board. Within 3 hours of submission, and they said we have to do this. So I was lucky that way. And for people who write children's books, get hold of a lit agent like book bakers, and to make things easier, right? So yeah, so that's the journey of the book so far.
That's incredible. And I do know that Vish writes very well. In fact, to all our listeners, make sure you check out our previous episode, which is about Vish Dhamija's latest book, Cold Justice. Going from writing about true crime to this, of course, your demographic has changed a lot, right? The target demographic from adults who can stomach these kind of graphic books to children and preteens. So how do you manage that change, and what are the challenges that come with writing for children and preteens?
So when I first looked at the manuscript, I realized that every third page or second page had reference to food. Okay. The next morning, Mrs. Chaudhary laid the table with hot breakfast, Motu awake with the smell of frying puris, and everybody was having puris. Because I was in boarding school, I was always hungry. So I vicariously lived through the pages of this book to fill my stomach, right? So I wrote about donuts and cakes and puris and all of that, because I myself was hungry. When I read the manuscript, I had to go back to being a child again, right? And I had to think like that. I had to think I had to think more purely.
It's a book that it seems like you enjoyed writing it, and I, as a reader, love reading. Even though I am not exactly the target demographic for this book, I still enjoy reading this book so much. And I love that you've given them the name of The Adventurous Six, which is something that I'm very curious about. So like you mentioned, you wanted to make this a series when you were a child.
Right.
So do you actually plan on doing that as an adult?
See, this is in class 6, I figured out there was Famous 5 and there was Secret 7.
Yes.
So for copyright reasons, I said I'll choose a number in between and make it Adventurous 6. So this is a decision that I took in class 6.
6 is especially lovely because one of them is a dog. I love
Yes.
that.
Yeah. So I have a 85-year-old aunt who reads all my books, and she sent me a SMS saying the last two chapters she was petrified reading because she felt for the safety of the kids, and she was really stressed out because of the way it's written. So it's thrilling. In the last two chapters, what I did was I sort of wrote it like a film script. So we were intercutting between three locations,
Hmm.
and so immediately that paced it up, and you felt like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. So she enjoyed that. So from a 13-year-old to 85, I mean, they're enjoying the book. So I guess something has been done right. As for sequels, yes, I definitely want to write more.
I'm sure it'll do really well. And it's doing so well. I haven't read something like this of Indian origin in a very, very, very
Thank you.
long time. So it's doing very well.
Thank you.
And of course, on that note, other than sequels for The Adventurous Six, what else are you working on?
So I was very lucky to have four books released this year, so which is quite strange. Also because there were one more's coming, darling. So I have, which I've just released, which is called India's Money Heist, published
Yes.
by Penguin, and it's about the biggest bank robbery of India, which is really a fun read. It's like it's amazing. It's like an Ocean's 11, but like completely ordinary people pulling off a robbery of 80 kgs of gold in 2007, and it's like super cops versus super criminals. So it's a great one. I have another book coming out in September, October. So it's called The Hills Are Burning. It's about my memoir. 23 will see a horror book, hopefully, an anthology. So I jumped genre again, and I go to horror this time. And of course, The Hills Are Burning is political and a love story, teenage love story. So which is again completely different. Then I go to horror, based on real haunted places of India, but that's like a metafiction, where I put my characters into real life haunted places and I relive the legends, and the things come true. So what happens? That's that. I have another uh, a story about four kids growing up in Kolkata in the 80s. Again, that's a memoir, and it's like a Dil Chahta Hai, from them being teenagers to them as adults, and how their friendship grows and the mischief that they get into and all of that. So that's that. And I am writing the official biography of a very famous cinematographer, plus a true crime book I'm still researching. I can't let go of true crime. That is what I love. So these things are there for 23, hopefully.
Wow, I am so excited, and my collection of AB's books is just growing and growing. And I'm waiting to finish all my other books to be read to finally order the next one, because you write them so fast. You just publish like one each quarter. So it's getting a little hard for us to catch up. And with that, we have come to the end of this episode. So thank you, AB, for being here. And to all our listeners, make sure that you pick up a copy of The Adventurous Six, The Sinister Summer Holiday. You will love it. Everyone you know will love it. And if you're looking for a gift for anyone between the ages of, I think, 7 to 13, this would be the perfect gift. Okay. And AB, we will definitely wait for your next read.
Thank you so much, Piyushi, for having me once again. And we'll do a session on India's Money Heist once you are done with the book. Then we can talk. You can talk about bank robberies. And lots of love to Ira as well, who we miss in this session. We miss you, Ira, but we shall talk again soon.
To all our listeners, we will see you in 5.